Okay, honey, what account have you signed in from?
Channa.
You're the host. Just mute everyone. Guys, we're just gonna mute you just so there's clarity for everyone to hear everyone. But if you want to ask a question, go ahead and unmute yourselves. Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to Sex is Not the Four-Letter Word, but relationships oftentimes is. I love this book. I love this book so much. Like before even starting to read it, so it's really funny. A few days back, a few weeks back, I twisted my ankle and I was lying in bed. And for a humanoid, boredom is like the worst thing that can ever happen. So I was in bed. After 2 days, I'm like, okay, cool, chill, give the body a little bit of rest. And after 2 days, I'm like, fuck, this is not what I want to do. This is not what I'm gonna like spend the rest 1 month as, like in bed with my leg up, staring at the television or staring at the wall. It's not happening. So I was like, okay, what can we do? So I went and made posters and created 3 different book clubs. The first one that we did was Money is Not a Problem. Yeah, of course. Is that better? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Nino, I would suggest turning up your volume. Try turning the volume of your laptop or computer or phone up. And then after that, the second one we did was The Place, which was, oh my God, so far beyond this reality. It was just beautiful. And the third one that we're doing now is this one. And I'm so excited to have opened the first call up to each one of you to join us. We all of us over here are very excited. Sanjeev, Reshma, and I are like jumping and buzzing with energy, and so is everyone else, and so are each one of you. Sanjeev said 37 of us. Yeah, all of us. It's so exciting. Let me go ahead and quickly introduce myself before I start reading, because I realize I have not done that. I am Isha Bawa. I'm an Access Consciousness Certified Facilitator, and I'm a Right Body View Facilitator. Access happened to me, or like I chose Access, however I'd like to put it. I think now 4.5 years back, it was 2014 October, I got introduced to it. And life has been very different. And how does it get better? So that's a little bit about me. Any questions you guys have before we start the read?
Okay, not a question, but I want to share. Yeah, I've been a recipient or the participant of Isha's 2-week book clubs. So first book was, as she said, Money is Not the Problem, You Are. And right after doing that, Isha, I haven't told you the feedback, What happened was I received 20,000 rupees right after that book club with, it just showed up.
Wow, what else is possible?
Yeah, and the place, there was this part of me that was like fully closed and locked, but reading the book with Isha, the place just opened that space of vulnerability within me. You guys are going to experience Isha. Her book reads are fantastic. Not going to say more. You experience the magic yourself.
Thank you, Sanjeev. I'm lucky to have the contribution that you're being. And thank you for sharing that. That's freaking cool, dude. Well done. That's your creation. That's awesome.
Isha, can I ask you something?
Yes.
What do you mean by vulnerability?
What does it mean to you?
I don't know. The dictionary says something else. So I'm just a little confused.
Yeah. So this thing about the dictionary is really interesting. You brought it up. The dictionary actually got changed after 1940 or 1640. I don't exactly remember the
1947.
Year. Right. So the dictionary got changed, and thank you. 1947, the dictionary got changed, and there were a lot of definitions and meanings that were replaced by completely new definitions, and the meaning of those words do not match the energy of the words. So it's actually the energetic meaning and the energetics of that word is something so contrary and different to what it actually is written in the new dictionary. So that's a little about looking your dictionary up. Always ask if what you're reading in the dictionary actually matches the energy of the word. Vulnerability for me, it's like vulnerability for me is like being an open wound. If you have a wound and you tie it up, you won't really be bothered about it very much. You will not be present with it. But if you have your wound open, you will be so present with your wound in every single moment. You will know what it requires to heal. You will know what it's asking for. You will know what you will know if someone is approaching and you would not like. If it doesn't want touch in that moment, you'll know when to move that part, your leg or your arm or whatever the wound, wherever the wound is, you know to move it away. And that's being vulnerability. It's seeing yourself, all the good, the bad, ugly, and those are the definitions that we've defined ourselves. It's seeing all of that, seeing what is required to change your definitions or wherever you've decided you're like bad, ugly, good, and basically getting out of the significance and looking at yourself with completely no point of view. That's that's a very that's a very small aspect of what vulnerability is. But for
Isha, you got muted.
who muted me? Energetically, I muted myself. Thanks for telling me that, Resh. I would have been talking to myself for the next 1 hour.
Sorry, that was me by mistake.
Oh, that's fine. That's okay. Thank you for letting me know.
I want to add on something.
Yeah.
So if you're vulnerable, won't you invite entities within your body or something like that?
No, not for me. Not for me. When you're vulnerable, okay, so vulnerable and being a doormat are not the same things. When you're being vulnerable in this reality, it's considered being a doormat. When you're being vulnerable from beyond this reality, from a true space of you, you're looking at yourself completely raw, looking at yourself everywhere you require whatever you require, looking at your brilliance, looking at your phenomenons and not having a point of view about it, not making it significant. That's vulnerability too. It's not just seeing the definitions where you've decided you're wrong and looking at it with no point of view and changing it, which is a huge aspect of vulnerability for me. But it's also looking at your brilliance and having no point of view, absolutely no point of view, and just being willing to be a contribution for yourself and for everyone around you. A beautiful question you can ask is, universe, what is vulnerability for me? What does vulnerability mean? Show me. There are a lot of times I don't have words a lot of times to describe a lot of different things. But if I'd like more clarity around certain energies, I just ask for them to show up in my world. I just ask the universe to show up the energy of that particular aspect that I'm asking to show up in my world, so I can know what it is for me. So if I'm asking for kindness, you can ask universe, what is kindness for me? Show me. What does being what are the 5 elements of intimacy for me? What would it look like if I started implementing that with myself, with my body, and with my life? Show me. Invite it into your world. We land up wanting a definition. We want to see exactly, we want to see the exact color, we want to see the exact photograph, the exact picture of what it's going to look like before we choose it. But what if you just choose it by asking the universe to show you what it's going to be for you? And a lot of times we look at what other people are choosing in regards to what they get vulnerability is or anything else. But that doesn't have to show up like that for you. That is that for them. But what is it for you? So everywhere you have decided and concluded and defined vulnerability based on what it has shown up in others' reality as, can you please destroy and uncreate that? Yeah. Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pop, online shorts, boys and beyonds. And everywhere you're being so vulnerable with yourself but unwilling to acknowledge it. Can you destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pop, online shorts, boys and beyonds. There's an intensity of vulnerability we all are. It's not something that's outside of you. It's something we all being with ourselves already. The question is, would you truly like to acknowledge your vulnerability with yourself? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pop, online shorts, boys and beyonds. Awesome. Shall we start the read? I hope that answered your question. Okay, awesome. Let's start reading. Okay. Ah, Gary Douglas. I see his photograph. So beautiful. Page, I have the Kindle version, so I'm going to be reading from page 5 over there. I'm Gary Douglas. Let me show you what page I'm on so you can like see. This one. Beautiful photograph of Gary. Okay. I'm Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, an energy transformation system that provides people with tools they can use to remove their limitations and disabilities and create some pretty amazing and wonderful new possibilities for themselves. I began exploring consciousness and energy and other aspects of this weird, wild, wacky world in 1990, after realizing that I wasn't happy in my life. I'd had the cars, I'd had the houses, I'd had the success, and I had reached a point where none of it meant anything to me. Everything that was considered valuable in this reality I had, and it still was not enough. Life, as I was experiencing it, was a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of trauma, drama, upset, and intrigue, and not very much joy. I knew that there had to be more to life, or else there was no reason to be alive. There had to be more than this reality was offering, because there was nothing about it that was magical, joyful, or expansive. I began to look for some answers, and that has led me down some pretty interesting paths. I started out thinking that I wanted to know how to find the magic in my life. I didn't realize at the time that magic is all around us. It's something we create. Even though some amazing things had shown up in my life, boom, 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 as soon as I asked for them, I didn't see the magic I had created. Since that time, I've learned to think differently about the universe and the consciousness and oneness that we all are, and the magic that is an intrinsic part of it. In so doing, I've been able to make some tremendous changes in my life and help other people to make changes in theirs as well. When I was a kid, people would ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I'd say, "I want to be happy." They'd say, "No, no, son. What do you want to be when you grow up?" I'd say, "Happy." They'd say, "No, no. Do you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an Indian chef? Indian chief?" I would have liked to be a chef. I'd say, "Yeah, as long as I'm happy." In these pages, my friend and co-author Dane here and I share processes and tools that bring within reach the magic of happiness, as well as anything else you wish to create. Our Access seminar on magic, which we've taught in cities throughout the USA and in Costa Rica, New Zealand, and Australia, forms the foundation for this book. Now, with an understanding of the true magic of life, happiness is real. Next, I'm on page 7 now. Dr. Dane here. My name is Dane here. Prior to discovering Access, I may have seemed successful on the outside, but inside I was very unhappy with myself and my life. I was living with my girlfriend and working as a chiropractor in a small beach community near Santa Barbara. There were people who would have looked at my life and said it was perfect. And yet I was so intensely unhappy that every morning after my girlfriend left for work, I would lie in bed and cry. I didn't have any idea how to make my life work or create and accomplish all the dreams I had for so long. I had tried probably 20 or 30 different processes and systems for improving my life, and certainly one of them should have made my life work. But I always kept running into a brick wall. I was beginning to feel desperate. I knew there had to be an answer, but I had no idea where to find it. And in the end, suicide seemed like the best available option. One day, in the great desperation, I said, "Look, universe, you've got 6 months or I'm killing myself." I was tired of struggling. A week later, I saw a small classified ad in a weekly paper saying, "Access. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory," called Shannon. I said, "Ease and joy and glory?" Pollyanna put a fucking ad in the paper, fuck you, and I threw the paper down. A week later, I saw the same ad. "Access. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory," called Shannon. This time, I didn't throw the paper down. I called Shannon and demanded, "What do you do?" She said, "Oh, I do this thing called Access. I put my hands on your head. It's a process called the bars. It'll last for about an hour to for from an hour to an hour and a half at the worst. You'll feel like you had a good massage, and at the best, your whole life would change." In the back of my head, I was saying, my whole life better change or I'm fucking killing myself. I was skeptical, but I decided to try it. Shannon came to my office and started the bars. The moment she put her hands on my head, I started giggling like a little kid. I continued to giggle like a child for full duration of the session, 1 hour and 15 minutes. After the session, I experienced the first sense of peace I'd had in 2.5 years. I got up from the massage table, and for the first time in my life, I remember truly knowing that everything was okay. Everything always had been, and everything would be. That session saved my life. I started working with Shannon once a week, and every time we worked together, my life changed. And I could see it. I started waking up in the morning with a sense of joy and possibility instead of, "Geez, I can't wait until I'm off this planet." Access had been an amazing gift to me, and through using its processes and tools, magic has shown up in my life. I now ask for things and they show up. But the real magic is the ability to have the joy that's possible, the joy that can be created, the joy life can be. Sure, magic is about the fun of having the things you desire show up in your life, but in a much larger way. Magic is about consciousness that is experienced not as an addendum to your life or that's done instead of your life. Magic is about consciousness as your life. It's not about meditating in a cave removed from life in order to have consciousness. You should be functioning from consciousness every moment you're alive. When you do, your life becomes truly magical. And there's nothing you can't create. That's the beauty of it. In this book, we share many of the things we have learned about magic, tools, processes, and possibilities that you can use for functioning as consciousness in every living, waking, breathing, intense moment that you have on the planet. Introduction. This book about sex and relationship is an invitation to greater consciousness and greater possibilities and offers a fresh view of how to create your relationship. We hope the things we have written will blow your mind, push you into a place of questioning, and make you say, "You're full of shit." How can you say that? Everything in this book is about getting you to look at yourself and your relationship from a different place so you can have a different possibility and a different choice. Some of the things we talk about will contradict all your ideas about the way things should be. We may challenge that you've been told in every class about sex and relationship you've ever taken, everything you've read about the subject, everything you've been told by all the so-called experts. But if those things really worked, wouldn't you have been free, expansive, and joyful in your relationship a long time ago? Maybe learning to question what doesn't work will open the way to find something that does. After all, have been taught, if what you have been taught were working, wouldn't you have an incredible result now? In conventional terms, success in relationship often means you get married. True story. If you're not married, you have not been successful at your relationship. And okay, we'll read the next line now. um, you have children and you keep that marriage together until death do you apart. Our point of view is different. We believe the most important part of a successful relationship is to have true intimacy with yourself. If you have that, you can be alone, be happy, and not judge yourself as a spinster, a weird bachelor, or a gay guy. You can be by yourself and enjoy you, which is really the place where everyone should be. How many people do you know who have that? Our point of view is only when you have true intimacy with yourself, you can create a great relationship with another. In this book, Priya saying until death do you apart made me laugh from my experience. It's hilarious. Till death do you apart. And does the being ever die? No. So all the oaths, vows, communalities, realities, commitments, binding, bonding contracts we all have made to ourselves, to any and all beings in this lifetime and any other lifetime across all time, spaces, and dimensions, to be with them till death do us apart. Can you now revoke, reclaim, renounce, destroy, and uncreate all of that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pork, online shorts, boys and crayons. Thank you. In fact, you guys can run this clearing every other day. I was going to say every day, but if every day, see, as in when you, as you would like to, it could remove a lot of stickiness in this certain aspect. And I mean, a lots of others, right? Because ripples are always sent out. Did I just read a chat? Can someone please type that? Resh, will you please do typing for me? All the oaths, vows, communalities, realities, commitments, binding, bonding contracts you have made to yourself, to any and all other beings in this lifetime, any other lifetime, across all time, spaces, and dimensions, to stay on and hold on to others.
Honey, slow down, please.
Oops. Tell me where to start from.
1 second. Okay, all the oaths, vows, communalities, realities, binding, bondings.
Commitments, binding, bonding contracts. You have made to any and all beings in this lifetime, in any other lifetime, across all time, spaces, and dimensions.
Slow.
I got the clearing. I got it. I got the clearing. I can type it out on the group and send them.
That would be great. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Resh.
Welcome.
Okay. In this book, we discuss the 5 elements of creating great intimacy and offer many other points of view about sex and the nature of relationships. We hope you will use this information to create extraordinary relationships that have ongoing spark, verve, vitality, and sex, unlike anything you have experienced before. To begin, here are some questions for you to consider. You know those things you ask when you'd like a different possibility? They're called questions. How many of you ask a question? And how many of you would rather operate from conclusions? So all the
How many of us ask a question assuming it's a question rather than, I mean, we have a conclusion.
I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
I totally got what you're saying. What Resh is saying is that how many of us ask a question assuming it's a question but it's actually a conclusion? So are you really asking a question, or are you just concluding with a question mark at the end of the sentence? So all the conclusions that we keep dwelling into with the question mark at the end of the sentence, can we just try and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online shots, boys and beyond. That was a good one. Thanks, Resh. And all the definitions we have of good questions and bad questions, can we just try and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online shots, boys and beyonds. There was so much that I just got back from the certified facilitators today, and there was so much that we spoke about righteousness, the rightness and the wrongness, and where we're just so embedded in proving how right we are and how right we must be and how much the next person must see our righteousness. What if you're willing to truly get out of the righteousness of life? Would you like freedom, or would you just like to be embroiled in proving how right you are in every aspect of life? A lot of times we do this thing of, I will not take this anymore. I have taken this enough and I'm not going to take this anymore, because that's me having my back and that's it, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Is that energy? And I'm not saying this is for everyone. Just ask yourselves this question. Is this energy really the energy of having your back for you? Or is this the energy of wanting to be validated for being right, for your choices, of how you're not going to take shit anymore, and how you were right because of XYZ reasons, and how right you are now because you are having your back, and people must see it because you're right, because you're having your back. Everything that is, can we destroy and uncreate it all? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online shots, boys and beyonds. Having your back is not right. Having your back is not wrong. Having your back is just having your back. It creates greater, but it's not right and it's not wrong. Okay. To begin, here are some questions for you to consider. What are the questions you need to ask to create the relationship you want? What would it take for a relationship to work for you, not for anyone else? What would it take for you to feel expansive in your relationship? What would it take for you to perceive the possibilities and not the limitations? What would it take for you to stop judging yourself and your mate and to recognize that you have a different choice? Beautiful questions to ask. This one I love so much. What would it take for you to perceive the possibilities and not the limitations? Guys, anytime you go into the wrongness of yourself, into the wrongness of your relationships, whether it's with a friend, whether it's with a partner, whether it's with your business, whatever it is, ask to perceive the possibilities rather than perceiving the limitations. What energy, space, and consciousness can you and your body be to be a catalytic converter of problems into possibilities with total ease? And everything that doesn't allow that, can you destroy and uncreate it all? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online shots, boys and beyonds. Is relationship what you really want?
That could be the next book read, you know, Isha. That could be the next book read.
Yeah, totally. I was just coming to that Simone and Brendan have just written a book. It's called Relationship. Do you really want one?
It's a brilliant book, I must say.
So let's read that next. This week we're completing this book, right? Next week let's read that book.
Awesome. Let's do that next week. I bought it this time and I cannot wait to open and read it. Done. Next week we'll do that as a book club. Okay. Is relationship what you really want? Personally, I'm not interested in relationship. I'm interested in consciousness, and I'm interested in communion. Communion is not the wafer on the wine you take on Sunday. It is an awareness of all things, and it is a oneness that we all are. When I talk about communion, I mean being in communion with all things, but most importantly, being in communion with yourself and your body. You can't begin to have relationship with another until you are in communion with yourself. And to be in communion, you must be conscious. Does consciousness include sexualness? Does it? Consciousness and spirituality are not exclusive of one another, but neither are they the same. A lot of people do spirituality, but they approach it from the viewpoint, I'm right and you're wrong. When this happens, spirituality becomes another form of religion and it creates separation rather than communion. The difficulty with most spiritual pursuits is that they do a hell lot of judging. Consciousness, unlike this kind of spirituality, includes everything and judges nothing. Does consciousness include spirituality? Does it include sexualness? Yes, it does. The problem with judging is that every judgment you make stops you from receiving anything that doesn't match the judgment. This is really interesting, guys. Dane has really spoken about the evil of men, how a lot of women have the evil of men stored in their world. And if you have that judgment about evil of men in your world, it's going to be really difficult for you to have anything else show up in your world.
What is that? What is evil of men?
What is it for you?
I just have no sense of it.
Right. So
is it being against men?
I heard this for the first time when Dane had come. I don't know if it was the SOP. I think it was a SOP in Delhi last year when Dane was talking about, was it last year, this year? Okay, so I don't remember. The last SOP that happened in Delhi, I think he was talking about the evil of men stored in us and our lives and our bodies. Anytime you make them wrong, anytime you make men wrong, anytime you decide and conclude how evil men are, how wrong they are, how vicious they are, if you put all the men into one category and say just all men are like this.
Yeah, and some people say, yeah, men will be men.
Men will be men. Yeah, totally. Men will be men. That is one of the biggest ways you light the fire on the evil of men. It's a conclusion. Totally, it's a conclusion. And if you have the evil of men stored in your world, nothing that does not match the judgment can show up. Rabia is asking, do women really do this? Well, again, I cannot combine all women into one section. Women, again, is just a body. Everyone's an infinite being. Everyone has done everything. Everyone's been it all. So a lot of women who have been men in men bodies have a lot of judgment of thank you. My sweet chef, my cook is coming to give me food. He's saying, "Khana kha lo, baby." Anyway, so a lot of women who have been men in the past have a lot of judgments of what they've done, and they store that as evil. Everywhere they've judged themselves to have been evil. A lot of us women have been the biggest I don't know what to say, Casanovas, when we were men. I mean, today, if you judge men, let me ask you a question. How much have you been and done that in the past? So everywhere you have been and done all of that in the past, can you destroy and uncreate that? And everywhere you're carrying forward the judgment of all of that into your present and into your future, can you please destroy and uncreate all of that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pork, all nine shots, boys and beyond. And I know I'm talking about the evil of men right now, but for all the men out there, you can ask if you have the evil of women stored in your world. A lot of men have the evil of women stored in their world. So anything that doesn't match the judgment of women being evil, nothing else can show up in their world. You might want to run this on loop. So what jails are you using to create for the creation of the dominance of E equals MC square, for the creation of and the justification of the evil of men being alive in your world and in your body? Can you please destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pork, all nine shots, boys and beyonds. And he spoke about it again this time at the certified facilitators, that that so many of us women And it's not just in our country, it's a lot of us around the world. A lot of men have the evil of women stored in their world. A lot of women have evil of men stored in their world. And it doesn't have to be, and for everyone, it could be, intensities could be different. You just have to ask if it's true for you. It doesn't have to be true for you. Like I said, you can't categorize everyone and put them into a box. Everyone is different. You can ask if it's true and right for you. It doesn't
Isha- Pankaj has a question. He says, you probably answered it, but how do we deal with being overconscious, judging ourselves acutely, physically, and otherwise? Am I interesting? So on and so forth.
So, am I interesting? That's another judgment.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's okay. Cool. That's a really awesome question, Pankaj. I would love to start with asking you, does that judgment come up when you're in front of a lot of people, or does it come up even when you're sitting by yourself? A lot of times, if it's on stage, there are two different aspects. Like if you're on stage, and if it comes up on stage when you look at a lot of people, a lot of people go on a mic, and when they go to the mic, they suddenly feel overburdened, or they feel different thoughts coming into their mind. It's because there's so many people looking at you in that moment, and you're so freaking aware that you're tapping into everybody's thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
So,
And when they're looking at you, they're not really looking at you. Sorry, can I just quickly complete this? When they're looking at you, they're not really looking at you and judging you. When they're looking at you and passing a judgment, they're really passing a judgment at themselves of what they would have been if they would have stood up and been in your place. It's really more about them than it is about you. Yeah, go ahead.
So Isha, specifically in line with my question, right? I don't have a problem with talking in front of a group of people, but I start judging myself or being too hard on myself or being acutely aware of how I'm being only when I'm talking to someone who's interesting. So if I find someone interesting, I start becoming more aware of these things. I generally don't find it a problem to speak to a group of people. It actually comes with ease. But
Right.
let's say I find someone interesting and I want to go strike a conversation with them. Even before I do that, I
Yeah.
start judging myself. So I was just wondering, because it's really
Totally.
frustrating, right? Because you want to talk to someone and
Yeah.
you really, really like that person, but you stop yourself just because
Yeah.
you have some perceived, I don't know. You get where I'm coming from.
I exactly get what you're trying to say. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I'm going to quote Gary Douglas on this. Gary Douglas always says, always be, a lot of us want to be, like you said, a lot of us want to be interesting. We want to hold people's attention. And, but what if instead of being interesting, you could change the energy to being interested? Gary says, in this reality, no one really cares about people who come up to you and who are actually interesting. People only want to be asked about themselves. So if you want to be interesting, be interested in others. That's how they will love you. Just ask them questions. Just ask another question, and they'll feel so connected to you, because you'll probably be the first person who actually took interest in their life, in them. And if you're looking into someone's world with no point of view whatsoever, you look at them with no point of view, when you ask them a question, when they show you a part of their world, when they show you their reality, they just, their world expands, because no one's really ever been that with them. No one ever asks them questions. How many people do you know in this world, in this reality, that actually ask you questions? A lot of people are more interested in telling you their stories about how awesome they are and how amazing they are, which is what they use to make you validate their reality most of the times. But basically, coming back to what Gary was saying, Gary always says, if you want to hold a conversation, you want to hold someone's attention, always be interested, not interesting. A lot of us go to interesting because that's how we feel we'll be able to hold people's attention. But if you truly want to have a conversation with someone and you truly want to be interesting, be interested, and people will love you. They will totally love you. People don't care about what we are doing. People don't really care about how awesome our lives are or how not awesome our lives are. They don't care. they only care about how awesome they are. They want to show you how amazing their life is. So look into their world with no point of view, without any significance. Ask them a question and they will love you. Try it. And remember, 99% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are not yours. So every time you have that thought come into your head, who does it belong to? Is it even yours? And who are you being? Every time that comes up, who are you being? And how old are you being?
Without taking too much time, right? Just a quick follow-up point. For me, it's gotten to a point where I find it really difficult to walk up to people and strike conversations up with people specifically whom I find interesting. And I have actually followed the approach that you mentioned, where you try to be interested than being interesting, right? So
Yeah.
you ask questions and have a very open approach to the relationship. But it gets to a point where you stop asking questions, and people also want to hear a little bit about yourself, right?
Right.
So when it gets to a point in the conversation where you have to start talking about yourself as well, there is this judgment that sometimes creeps up into the conversation, where I feel like what I have to say wouldn't be as interesting as it is in my mind. So I might have something really interesting to say, but then because of that judgment, the way it comes out doesn't have that doesn't have the capital that I would like it to have.
So who are you being when all of this is going on? Are you being you?
It's been such a long time since this been happening. So I understand your question, but I don't understand how to answer that question. So I'm not able
Okay,
to
I totally
bring the
get
distinction.
that. Just play with me on this. Whatever comes to your mind first. Who are you being?
Something that people want me to be.
So everywhere you're being that instead of being you. Can you just try and uncreate that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online, shots, boys and beyond. Let me ask you another question. Are you an X-Men?
No.
Truth?
I have no idea.
Okay,
maybe
fine.
I
Just
should
play with that. Play with that. A lot of.
Yeah, actually, to answer your question, right? I think yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I'm sorry, but can we mute someone? Resh, could you mute Bhavna, please? I'm sorry, Bhavna, I'm gonna have to mute you, but just to get more.
Yes, actually, could all of you please keep yourself muted unless you're talking, please?
Thank you. Pankaj? Okay. X-Men capacities. So all the X-Men capacities that you have, okay, so how much faster are you than the people you're talking to? More than 100 times? More than 1,000 times?
I
more
think
than Godzillion?
So I don't know how to quantify it, but I generally tend to feel that I think faster and also speak a bit faster than most people that I communicate with.
Yeah, people are just way too slow for you. When someone is an X-Men, you're so fast. You're so fast, and it's not a wrongness. It's a capacity. You could ask your capacity to contribute to you. A lot of times we tend to stick to certain energies and certain people because that's considered right. But when the energy is done, the energy is done. It's when we try to stick to a certain energy that you want to squeeze it and turn it and make it what it was. But that's not what it was what it was. Now ask for a different energy to show up. Ask for a different and a greater energy to show up. And yeah. And everywhere you're perceiving other people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions way faster than you'd like to, can you ask your allowance to exceed your awareness?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online, shots, boys and beyonds. Not wrong.
Yep.
You're most welcome. It's a capacity. Just ask for it. Ask for it to work for you. Just ask. And if there's an energy that's getting stale or sticky, ask for the molecules of that energy to shift and start contributing to you and to be fun. A lot of times, and this is really interesting, guys, because I know a lot of people who have this, especially in access, because a lot of us are X-Men. A lot of us acknowledge it, and a lot of us don't. Rabia says me. A lot of us acknowledge it, and a lot of us don't. But when you acknowledge that you're so much faster than what you pretend to be, that's when it becomes difficult. When you try to slow yourself down, that's when it becomes tough. So everywhere you've all tried to slow yourself down to be and fit into the mediocrity of life, can you please destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, online, shots, boys and beyonds. You guys are not mediocre. Not at all.
Someone's asking what's an X-Men.
What's an X-Men? Have you watched the movie X-Men? So X-Men is Access talks about people who have capacities like ADHD, autism, OCD. What else? Yeah, like all these capacities that are ADD, all these capacities that are made bipolar. Thanks. And all these capacities that are made wrong. Multiple personality is actually something else that Gary talks about, but like all of them are such huge capacities of yours, and you're way faster than this reality and the mediocrity that people believe is real.
Also, on the surface of it, I don't think it looks like we have ADD or ADHD or autism, or we may just as normal as any other human being.
Yeah, totally. On the surface, it's really interesting because I'm not very comfortable in huge cocktail parties. It's funny because yesterday Gary Douglas was like, how many of you enjoy going to cocktail parties? And there were like 5 of them out of 300 people. And it's not something I really enjoy. You guys can ask yourselves if you enjoy it. But like, I really don't enjoy going to huge cocktail parties. Like, take me to a cocktail party with my five people and to chill with them, and I'll have a blast. But the thing is that, and I really made myself wrong for this this thing of, and I always tagged myself as someone who, Jeevan is saying I love to party. That's so cool. I always made myself so wrong because I thought I could not engage with people. But and I've been looking at it recently, and it's not true at all. I love engaging with people, but and I was sitting in an X-Men class, introduction to X-Men it was, and this person, the facilitator, asked us that are you this, and when he said, are you autistic, and I went yes, and I didn't even know the definition of autistic, and when I looked it up, just for my like interesting point of view information, I looked it up and it said that not comfortable socially, and I laughed so hard. And I was like, that's hilarious. Now, if you go to a doctor, the doctor will term you as something which is really funny. But it's just interesting. It's just really interesting. And X-Men, it's not the labels that are given to them. You could be an X-Men without you being labeled also. And what will it take for all the X-Men to be free of all labels, to actually show up as the X-Men they truly be? And everywhere you guys are slowing yourselves down to fit into this reality and fit into the mediocrity of this reality rather than being the true fast pace of you that you are. Can you please destroy and uncreate that? Thank you. Right, wrong, good and bad, pod and talk, online, shots, boys and beyonds. I hope that helped.
So I would like to add to that. What is difficult socially sometimes is See, I'm an extrovert, but I still hate parties because of the superficial conversation that is supposed to make. Because the moment I see someone, I'm able to perceive their whole world and where they're coming from.
Yes.
And I would rather ask them questions like, "Hey, this is what's going on in your world. Where is this coming from?" Or I would just like directly ask them, "Hey, so what I'm perceiving right now, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, what is this all about?" Like I just see their whole energy cloud or whatever. And then to talk to them about the weather or about the color of their shoes, it just seems so superficial and mundane.
Yeah. So everything that is, can we just try and uncreate it all?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, wrong, good and bad. Pot and Pock, online shots, boys and beyonds. Also talking about X-Men, there's a call coming up which is called Conversations of Money and Business, and it has one of the facilitators is Diva Dias, who is the X-Men. She facilitates X-Men. She is, I don't know what exactly, but she's an X-Men facilitator and she's brilliant. So if that's something you guys would like to explore, if that's something that would be a contribution, you guys can like text me or Reshma or mom. Just putting it out there. If you'd like a little more, if you'd like to know how to work with your X-Men capacity, then not slow yourself down, might be something that you could have fun on or not, you choose. Okay, where were we? Does consciousness include spirituality? Does it include sexualness? Yes, it does. The problem with judging is that every judgment you make stops you from receiving anything that doesn't match the judgment. For example, if you decide that your partner is the perfect mate, then you become unwilling to see when they do something against you. The moment you judge your partner to be perfect, you stop perceiving. Can you see how this works? You decide they're perfect, and then you won't see anything else. You can't perceive or receive any other information. You won't see the ways in which they don't contribute to making your life more expansive. You won't see when they are doing something against you. You stop being present in your relationship as the all-knowing infinite being that you truly are, and you begin to eliminate you from the relationship. If you're experiencing a limitation or difficulty in your life around sex, relationship, or anything else, there has to be something you are unwilling to perceive. In fact, if anything in your life is not working, it's because you are unwilling to perceive, know, be, or receive something. That's how our relationships become limited and unhappy. In fact, it's the only way our reality becomes limited. And one more little thing that just popped into my mind, I'd like to add about the conversation we were having. When you're having a conversation with someone and you have these thoughts pop into your mind of, I hope I'm being interesting, I hope I'm keeping this person interested, is it really yours, or are you perceiving their limitations and their thought of, are you interested in their conversation? Is it even yours, or are you reading their mind? Are you just perceiving their energy or what they are thinking in that moment with this pretense of being so whatever from the outside?
You actually banged the nail. I generally have this, I tend to perceive what the other person assumes to be interesting or not about me, rather than whether I'm being interesting myself or not. So let's take an example. If I'm talking to you right now, and I find you interesting, I would be perceiving, I would be making assumptions about whether you find what I have to say is interesting or not necessarily whether I personally feel what I'm saying is interesting or not. And it's so twisted, right? After a point in time, if you keep channeling this kind of an energy, which is also one of the reasons why I'm in this session, is it becomes difficult to have relationships that you actually value, because if in every single conversation that you have with a person, you end up wondering what that other person is thinking about you, it becomes so difficult to have a meaningful relationship, leave alone have, a physical one.
So everywhere we're all looking to add meaning to relationships, can we just try and create that? Thank you. Right, wrong, good and bad. Pot and Pock, online shots, boys and beyonds. You can ask to play with asking your allowance to exceed your awareness a lot. When someone is really aware of what the next person is thinking, what the next person, and when you're aware of the next person's insecurity, it's going to pop up as insecurity. But if you don't ask a question, you'll be like, oh, insecurity, that's me, I'm insecure. It works like that. So you really have to ask, is that even mine, or am I picking up theirs? What am I aware of over here? And where relationships are concerned, what I have a lot of fun doing is destroying and uncreating everything that my relationship has been so far with XYZ person, and then pot and pocking it. So the next morning when you wake up to a completely fresh energy, new energy to create something totally different. So much fun, so that there's no stickiness and there's no stale energy left. It's completely new. It could have taken a completely different turn. You could try it. Could be fun.
Ish, just one question.
Yes, honey.
I'm going to have to leave. So would you like me to make you the admin?
We're almost done.
Okay, cool.
5 minutes. Could you stay on for
Yes,
5 minutes?
I could, yes.
Thank you. Okay. If you are experiencing a limitation or difficulty in your life around sex, relationship, or anything else, there has to be something you are unwilling to perceive. In fact, if anything in your life is not working, it's because you are unwilling to perceive, know, be, or receive something. That's how our relationships become limited and unhappy. In fact, it's the only way our reality becomes limited. So everywhere you are unwilling to perceive, know, be, and receive an aspect of your life for sex and relationship, or whatever is required for a greater reality and a greater future with sex and relationship, can you please destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online shots, boys and bayons. When you go out into the woods and you don't have any judgment about anything there, your mind is quiet. Everything is peaceful. There is a sense of beauty. You're in total connection with everything. This space you feel in nature is the communion you have with all things, which is consciousness and oneness. We are everything. There isn't anything that we haven't been or done in one lifetime or another. If we can claim the so-called evil side of ourselves, talking about evil, and guys, evil is unconsciousness and anti-consciousness. That is what evil is. It's not what this reality defines it as. So everything that is, can we destroy and uncreate it all? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online shots, boys and bayons. If we can claim the so-called evil side of ourselves as easily as we claim the so-called good side of ourselves, then we won't spend our time trying to judge what is right or wrong about us, and we'll move into a place of oneness and consciousness. We're so interested in being right and not being wrong, or we're so vested in being wrong and trying to be right, on the other hand, that there's no place for fun and freedom in your life anymore. So everywhere you're stuck in being right and avoiding being wrong, can you destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, online shots, boys and bayons. What we're looking for is how to get to oneness with sex, relationship, and copulation. If you can do this without judgment, then you have freedom. But as long as you have judgment, you have no freedom. When you suppress yourself with the judgment that you are bad or anything else, you create a limitation that eventually locks you out of you. I have a friend who did a psychology class, and the professor told the students that 90% of the population would rather have a bad relationship than no relationship. Rather than be alone and enjoy themselves, most people would rather have a partner they're miserable with. Because that means they have someone to make them wrong, someone to make them unhappy. You'd rather be with someone like that and just know that you have someone rather than actually being happy. Oh, that sucks. Can we change that now? Right, wrong, good,
Yes,
bad, pot, online shots, boys and bayons. Is that enough for you? If it is, throw this book away. But if you would like to have something greater in your life than the bullshit most people think of as relationship, then you must begin to develop a more conscious attitude towards yourself and your body, towards sex and towards communion with others. As I said, at the beginning. What we are looking for is not relationship but communion, consciousness and oneness. If this sounds interesting to you, keep reading. What a beautiful note to end up today.
I know, right?
It has a way of working out. Always.
Always.
Always. On that note, thank you for joining me, guys, today. Thank you, Reshma and Sanjeev, for creating this Zoom call with me today. I've had so much fun. I'm so glad we did this.
52 people!
and thank you, guys. And we will continue reading. Okay. We will continue reading the book tomorrow onwards. So if this is something you guys would like to join us on, feel free. Contact any one of us. Sanjeev, raise your hand. Reshma, raise your hand. Or me. Okay.
Come on, guys. 7 days, 7 hours, meaning like 1 hour per day. You finish the entire book, and it's, you know, so much of value.
Reality.
Yeah. Say that again.
Change your reality in 7 days.
Your reality. Change your sexual reality.
Absolutely.
And that is receiving sexualness, whatever. Okay. Thank you, guys.
You will receive the recording.
Yes.
Yeah, just leave Reshma or me a message and you will receive a recording.
That would be awesome. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. See
Bye.
you.
See ya.
Bye, everyone. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.